welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Jed Levine, Executive Vice President of the Alzheimer's Association, right?
Right.
Thanks for being on the show. In fact, you're wearing the logo of the what is
of the
that?
Alzheimer's
Yeah, what is
Association.
that? What does that signify?
What that signifies is it's a representation of a human head, meaning that we're concerned about people, and also like a laboratory beaker or a flask. So we're also very concerned about science. So our work is really about people and science. We're concerned about people with the disease and helping them and helping their families, giving them support, education, information. But we're also very concerned about finding a way of curing this disease or preventing this disease. So research is a big piece of it.
I read in Boning Up for You that every 71 seconds, someone in the world is diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Someone in the United States.
Someone in the United States is diagnosed
Absolutely.
with Alzheimer's. Thanks for correcting me. That sounds like a lot.
It does, and it is a lot.
It is a lot. So you use the word prevent, hoping to prevent. Is it preventable?
Currently, we don't know ways of preventing it. There were some hypotheses, some theories, some thoughts about ways that we could possibly prevent it, but we have no hard evidence yet. We know that there are we know that age is the greatest risk factor, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many people now, because so many people now are living longer than they did before.
I want to ask you about that. You say that I also read that age is the greatest risk factor, but 70 is the new 50, 60 is the new 40. Is it still fair to say, I mean, is there a normal mental loss aging process, even though people are living fitter and more active? Does that still hold?
That's a very good question. And one of the things that we're researching and trying to understand more is kind of what is healthy brain aging? So we know, and I think it's very important to kind of distinguish between kind of maintaining cognitive health in a healthy older person as opposed to preventing the disease or lowering the risk for Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
So
it's kind of a balancing act.
That's right.
Right.
And we know that there are certain factors. One is physical exercise is really important.
So in this balancing act of maintaining, not preventing, right? Maintaining mental health, a good mental health. Number one was what? Physical?
Well, there were physical activity.
Physical activity.
We know that people who exercise and, that...
Physical exercise improves the mind?
Well, yes, if you think about it, that there seems to be a strong correlation between heart health and brain health.
Wow.
And we know that physical exercise is one of the best ways of maintaining your cardiovascular health.
Okay. And are there other... Since we're on that topic, are there other lifestyle kind of...
Absolutely. We know that there's physical exercise. There's also mental exercise.
And you brought this Alzheimer's Association Big Brain Puzzle book.
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that people who exercise their brain and kind of really stretch their brain, really do things that are a little more challenging for them, that there is evidence that...
This kind of thing, crossword puzzles?
Crossword puzzles, but if you've always done crossword puzzles, that's not a real challenge.
Exactly.
If you, but doing something like some of the logic puzzles or trying to learn a new language or trying to learn a new instrument, really kind of stretching your mind seems to, and again, this isn't cognitively healthy people, kind of keep them cognitively healthy.
So we're still on this topic of maintaining.
That's right.
What about diet, nutrition?
That's another factor. We know that heart-healthy diets, and particularly something like the Mediterranean diet that, has a lot of whole grains, green leafy vegetables, lots of fruits, low, not as much meat, apparently is, good for the brain as well. But again, that's good for the heart.
Right. And you know what? A lot of people still, whether it's because of the economic debacle or not, or because they love it, lots of folks that might have retired are still working. Won't that be a help to maintaining your mental acuity?
I absolutely think so. Sure. I think that people who work, one, they have a meaning in life, they have a purpose in life, they have a goal, they have something to go to
get up,
and
get
structure.
Dressed. Right.
Absolutely. And I think also, but it keeps them cognitively challenged.
If you're married, are you less likely to get Alzheimer's?
Well, actually, that there is some evidence that people who are in relationships, and there's a whole school of thought that looks at social relationships and keeping those social contacts. You have friends, you belong to a church or a community organization, and are not isolated and alone. That seems to again be good for your brain health.
Yeah, I want to ask you something, Jed. Lots of folks say, "Oh, gee," they use it kind of loosely. "Oh, I'm getting a little alzy," or what? "I'm getting worried about myself. I don't remember. I forgot the dates. I forgot the kid's birthday." How do you know when you're overloaded? I just read that. I mean, we are asked to consume an awful lot of information these days, and all passwords and all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
How do you know? Is there such a thing as normal overload, or does that kind of behavior, is that a forerunner of Alzheimer's?
I think one of the things that you want to look at is it affecting your ability to function in the world? So we know that.
For instance.
Okay, so as people grow older, it's certainly normal for people to, perhaps make an error in balancing their checkbook. You make an error, but you can correct it.
You forget a kid's birthday or something.
Right. An individual who's really having trouble keeping track of what bills to pay and when to pay them, and maybe is paying the bills twice or not paying them at all. That's something that should be a little more alarming. Actually, if you go to our website, you can see we have a wonderful pamphlet called the 10 Warning Signs for Alzheimer's Disease.
I'm not so sure I want to read them. Right.
But people can learn more about that.
I want to say, I did read that there are, there's this, what is this? There's a test now that you can take to see if you're Alzheimer prone or something. There's some kind of there's a way of sort of seeing if you're on the track to perhaps become Alzheimer's. Do you? Whether it's genetically, do you believe in it?
Well,
by the way, is it genetic?
Well, the genetic picture is very complicated. We know that in a very small group of families, there's a very clear genetic pattern. That's probably less than 1% of the entire population that has Alzheimer's disease, and many of those people are actually people who have the disease early in life, meaning below the age of 60 or 65. So many people don't know that 10% of people with Alzheimer's disease are in that category.
Really?
That's 500,000 people. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
The other piece about the genetics is that there's a genetic factor that might increase your risk for developing the disease, but it's not predictive. And we're uncovering more and more genetic factors, and the genetics kind of work with the environment. So we're now looking at the issue of head injury and how head injury might add to the picture. So it's actually very complicated. The genetics question is very complicated. There's a large national study going on now, funded by the NIH, and trying to take a look at this and understand it.
Yeah. So we've talked about ways to maintain yourself, but let's talk about those, how many hundreds of thousands or millions of folks that are getting it. How do we as a society take care of those people? Well,
that's a good question. I think we're really not prepared to take care of them. And this is going to be the largest public health crisis this country has ever seen. We're talking about 5.3 million Americans now.
5.3 million.
And that number is projected to go to 11 to 16 million by 2050 unless we really find a way to prevent this disease or hopefully cure it at some point. So what there is now for families.
So what's available now?
Right, for families that are concerned about a relative or caring, and we all know so many people who are touched by this disease.
Yeah.
They need information, they need education, they need support, they need respite, they need a break from caregiving. And throughout the country, there are 75 plus chapters of the Alzheimer's Association.
Do you folks help with that?
Absolutely. We have a 24-hour helpline. That's 1-800-272-3900.
Okay, we'll post that.
People can go to our website and get information. We have support groups which help families, and we have education meetings.
Are there different levels of Alzheimer's? I mean, I guess there's certain functioning that as it progresses, it gets worse, or does it stabilize at some point?
Alzheimer's is a progressive illness,
right.
And it starts with just mild forgetfulness and mild confusion and difficulty managing kind of everyday tasks, to where there's more behavioral problems. People become more agitated and more anxious, and they really need the support of a family member or a caregiver. And then eventually people really need total care. I mean, it's a very devastating disease. People need total support.
Jed, if you want to take responsibility for yourself and maintain your own independence for as many years as you have, and not be a burden to your family, following these things that we said before, exercise and nutrition, keeping active, are those really good things to do to keep that independence and self-reliance?
Well, I think those are definitely good things to do. There's no
Anyway,
downside to doing it.
Right.
Whether or not those are going to prevent Alzheimer's, if you aren't genetically predisposed to it and you have these other multiple factors, that is still kind of, we're not quite sure. But if it even reduces the risk or slows down the progression or the time at which you would develop the disease, then it's certainly worth doing it.
And while you're doing it, you
improve the quality of your life.
While you're doing it, you have a better life.
Yes.
Also. How close are we in this country to finding a cure?
That's a question. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could read it. I'll tell you, we're a lot closer than we were, and probably the majority of what we've learned in the past 15 to 20 years. So there are now over 50 drugs in trial in the United States. We need to invest a lot more money, and we need to advocate with our legislators and with the federal government to make sure that they are bringing that federal budget for Alzheimer's research up to a level where it needs to be.
Our budget is so mixed up now, who knows? But it also seems to me that we're going to get a lot more advocacy groups forming as baby boomers start now to retire or reach that 65-year-old age.
Absolutely. There are 78 million baby boomers that are reaching the age of risk for Alzheimer's disease. And if we can get them engaged, and there's a wonderful program.
What is this chemically? What happens? Is something inside your head chemically?
It's a very complex process. We know that there is a simple way of explaining it. There are certain enzymes, there are certain proteins in the brain that build up. And apparently when they build up, they clump together, and those become toxic, and they actually kill brain cells. So that's one of the things. Is it like a plaque or something? It is like a plaque. It's the amyloid plaque. And so we're now looking at the role of amyloid plaque and trying to figure out, best way to prevent that from clumping and from becoming toxic to the brain. We all have amyloid plaque in our brain, but how to prevent it from becoming that toxic element, that's the question. So there are a lot of researchers out there, and we're really trying hard, but we need the support of everybody.
Yeah. Well, what is it? I'm going to pick this up again. This is for sale, and
people can go to our website and they can find it there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this work with the Alzheimer's Association for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been there a long time.
You've seen a lot. Well, I have to say, at the holiday time especially, I wanted to have you on because you give a little bit of help and you give a little bit of hope.
Thank you.
Right. So, and you're really doing God's work.
Well, thank you.
Right. Anyway, thanks so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
I appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Right. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West.